Cadets mocked her at the gate. The scanner lit red. Earthborn, do not approach. The morning sun of station burned purple through the glass domes. Han walked toward the main gate of the Federation Military Academy. She was 23 years old. Her hands were rough from years of hard work. Her body was small but strong. She did not look like the other cadets waiting in line. The line moved slowly. Watch the others around her. Tall with silver skin checked their fancy devices. They moved like dancers, smooth and proud. Big cadets laughed together. They had tusks and muscles like mountains. Their voices were loud and harsh. Between them stood cadets from 100 different worlds. All of them wore clean uniforms. All of them had soft hands. All of them looked at like she was dirt on their boots. She kept her eyes forward. She had learned long ago not to react. The gate was massive. It was made of white metal that glowed with soft light. Above it hung the symbol of the Federation Military Academy. Only the best students in the galaxy came here. Only the richest. Only the most connected. And Han, the girl from Earth. When she reached the scanner, she stopped. A beam of blue light moved over her body. It checked her blood. It checked her bones. It checked her DNA. The machine hummed softly. Then everything changed. The scanner screamed. Red light exploded from it. Alarms rang out. Every cadet in line turned to stare. Words appeared in the air above's head. Big red letters that everyone could see. Earthborn Class Omega, do not approach. The cadets behind her started laughing. A male pushed through the crowd. His name was. His silver skin glowed in the red light of the scanner. His eyes were cold and cruel. He looked at like she was an insect. They actually let one through, said. His voice was loud enough for everyone to hear. An Earthborn here, at the academy. His friends laughed harder. Someone should check her for diseases, another said. Earthborn carry all kinds of filth. Maybe she got lost, added. The servant quarters are on the other side of the station. More laughter. It spread through the crowd like fire. Did not move. She did not speak. She had heard worse things before. Much worse. In the broken streets of Old Seoul. In the refugee camps after the collapse. In the factory ships where she worked 16 hours every day just to save enough money to leave Earth. Words could not hurt her anymore. The gate guard walked toward her. He was with 4 arms and 4 eyes. His face showed disgust as he looked at her documents. He read them slowly, like he hoped to find a mistake. Han, he said finally, scholarship candidate, Tactical Sciences Division. Scholarship, repeated. He made the word sound dirty. They give those to Earthborn now. What is the galaxy coming to? The guard kept reading. His 4 eyes moved across the screen. Then they stopped. Then they went wide. Top 0.01 percentile, he said quietly, in all entrance examinations. The laughter around began to fade. That is correct, said. Her voice was calm and clear. The scholarship is given to anyone who scores that high. It does not matter what planet you come from. Silence fell over the crowd, stared at her. His silver face showed confusion, then anger. Numbers on a test mean nothing, he said. You are still Earthborn. You are still Omega class. You do not belong here. Looked at him, really looked at him. She saw his expensive uniform, his perfect skin, his soft hands that had never worked a day in his life. She saw a boy who had been given everything and earned nothing. Maybe, she said softly, but I am here anyway. The guard stamped her documents. He stepped aside. The gate opened. Walked through. Behind her she heard speaking to his friends. She will not last a week. Earthborn never do. They are weak. They break easily. Did not turn around. She did not answer. She just kept walking. The academy campus spread out before her. White buildings rose toward the purple sky. Gardens filled with alien flowers lined the paths. Fountains sprayed water that glowed with soft colors. It was beautiful. It was peaceful. It was nothing like Earth. Stopped and looked up at the sky. Somewhere out there beyond the stars was the planet where she was born, a dying world, a broken world, a world that the Federation had rescued 300 years ago. But rescue came with a price. Humans were marked as Omega class, the lowest, the least trusted. They were allowed to work, they were allowed to serve, but they were never allowed to lead, never allowed to fight, never allowed to rise. The scanner warning was proof of that. Do not approach, like humans were dangerous animals, like they were something to fear. Most species had forgotten why that warning existed. They thought it was because humans were dirty, because humans were weak, because humans were less than them. They were wrong. Knew the real reason. She had lived the real reason. Humans were survivors. Earth had tried to kill them for 10,000 years. Ice ages, plagues, wars, famines, disasters that would have destroyed any other species, but humans kept going. They adapted. They endured. They fought back against a planet that hated them. And they won. That was why the warning existed. Not because humans were weak, because they were not. Because when everything else failed, humans were still standing. Because they did not know how to give up. Because they would do anything to survive. The Federation had forgotten this truth. They saw Omega class and thought it meant nothing. They saw Earthborn and thought it meant weak. Han would remind them. She took a deep breath. The air smelled strange, clean and artificial, nothing like the smoke and dust of Earth, nothing like home. But this was her life now. This was her chance. Her one chance to prove that Earthborn were more than servants, more than workers, more than a warning on a scanner. She picked up her bag and started walking toward the dormitories. The cadets she passed stared at her. Some whispered, some laughed, some just looked away like she was not worth seeing. Ignored them all. She had walked through fire to get here. She had crawled through darkness. She had survived things that would have killed anyone else. A few laughing cadets were nothing. The real test was coming. The training, the trials, the battles that would prove who deserved to be here and who did not. Was ready. She had been ready her whole life. The first month at the academy was designed to break her. Understood this from the beginning. The instructors did not hide it. They wanted to see who was strong and who was weak. They wanted to push every cadet until they cracked, and they pushed harder than anyone else. Her roommate was unnamed. He was huge. His shoulders were as wide as a door. His tusks were sharp and white. On the first night he looked at like she was a bug in his food. I requested a single room, he said. They gave me an Earthborn instead. Did not answer. She unpacked her small bag in silence. She had only a few things, some clothes, a photograph of her mother, a small stone from the ruins of Seoul. Watched her with disgust. You do not talk much. No, said. Good, I do not want to hear your voice. That was the last real conversation they had. 3 days later, went to the housing officer, heard about it from another cadet, had requested a transfer. He told the officer he could not sleep. He told them the Earthborn girl never rested. She just sat there all night, reading, studying, working. It was not natural. It was not right. The housing officer his request. Moved anyway, sleeping in a friend's room. Did not care. She was used to being alone. The physical trials began in the second week. The academy had obstacle courses designed for many different species. Some required 4 arms to complete. Some required wings. Some required bones that could bend without breaking or skin that could heal in seconds. Humans had none of these things. On the first day of physical training, an instructor named Commander stood before the cadets. He was old for a. His silver skin had turned gray with age. His eyes were sharp and cold. You will run the gauntlet, he said. It is designed to test your limits. Many of you will fail, that is expected. That is the point. He looked directly at. Some of you should not even try. The gauntlet was a nightmare made real. Walls that shocked you when you touched them wrong. pits filled with freezing water, spinning blades that could cut through bone, platforms that disappeared beneath your feet. They moved through it like dancers. Their bodies were flexible and fast. They dodged and twisted and never seemed to get tired. They used their strength. They smashed through obstacles. They jumped across gaps that seemed impossible. Their thick skin protected them from the shocks and the cold. Watch them all. She studied their movements. She learned the course. Then she ran it herself. She was slower than she was weaker than she got shocked. She got cut. She fell into the freezing water twice. Her body screamed with pain. But she finished. She finished dead last, but she finished. Commander looked at her time and said nothing, but saw something in his eyes. Surprise, maybe, or confusion. He had expected her to quit. She had not quit. The next trial was worse. The endurance test was simple in concept. Cadets were dropped on a hostile moon. They had to survive for 72 hours with minimal supplies. The moon had extreme temperatures, freezing cold at night, burning hot during the day. The air was thin. The ground was sharp rock. Nothing grew there. Nothing lived there. Most cadets formed teams, stayed with, no one invited to join them. She did not ask. The first 24 hours were hard, built a small shelter from rocks. She rationed her water carefully. She kept moving during the cold nights to stay warm. She rested during the hottest part of the day. Around her, she watched the other cadets struggle. They were the first to fail. Their bodies could not handle the temperature changes. They shivered in the cold. They collapsed in the heat. One by one, they activated their emergency beacons and were taken back to the academy. They lasted longer. Their bodies were strong, but they burned through their energy too fast. They ate all their food on the first day. They drank all their water by the second. By the third day, most of them were lying on the ground, too tired to move. Kept walking. Her body hurt, every muscle screamed. Her feet bled through her boots. Her lips cracked from thirst. Her lungs burned from the thin air. She kept walking. This was not new to her. This was not strange. This was Earth. This was what she had grown up with, a world that tried to kill you every single day, a world where stopping meant dying. At the 50-hour mark, only 3 cadets were still moving. Was one of them. At the 60-hour mark, only was left. She crossed the finish line alone, 18 hours after the second-place finisher. The medical team rushed to help her. They expected her to collapse. They expected her to need emergency care. Just sat down and drank some water. How? One of the medics asked. He was a young with wide eyes. How are you still conscious? Looked at him. She did not understand the question. She had been awake for much longer than this before. She had walked much farther than this before. She had hurt much worse than this before. I am not finished yet, she said simply. The medics looked at each other. They did not know what to say. Later that day, Commander called her to his office. He was the head of the Tactical Sciences Division. He was large for his silver skin was covered with old scars. His eyes had seen many wars. He studied for a long moment without speaking. She stood at attention and waited. Your file says you survived the soul collapse, he said finally. Yes, sir. You were 7 years old. Yes, sir. The records say you walked 60 kilometers through radiation zones to reach the evacuation ships, alone, without food or water, through areas that killed thousands of adults. Did not blink. There was nowhere else to go, sir. Leaned back in his chair. He looked at her like she was a puzzle he could not solve. The other cadets have been training their whole lives for this academy, he said. They have the best education, the best technology, the best genetics, and you beat them all in the endurance test. Said nothing. She was not sure if this was a question. How asked? She thought about it for a moment. How could she explain? How could she make him understand what it meant to be Earthborn? what it meant to grow up on a dying planet where every day was a fight to survive. "They stop when it hurts," said finally. "I do not know how to stop." Stared at her. The room was very quiet. Then he nodded slowly. "Report to advanced tactics tomorrow morning," he said. "You have been moved up to the senior class." Blinked. That was 3 years ahead of schedule. No cadet had ever been moved up so fast. "Sir." "You heard me, Cadet Han." Dismissed. Saluted and left the office. Her body still ached from the endurance test. Her feet still bled in her boots. Her muscles still screamed with every step. But for the first time since arriving at the academy, she smiled. The weight of Earth was heavy. It crushed most people. It broke them down into nothing. But it had made her strong. And she was just getting started. The Federation had a problem with history. They remembered the parts they liked. They forgot the parts they did not. Learned this in her classes. She learned about the Great Discovery. 300 years ago, Federation ships had found Earth. They found a dying world. The air was poison. The water was dirty. Wars had killed billions. The humans who survived were fighting over scraps like animals. The Federation called it a rescue mission. They offered to save humanity. They offered ships and food and medicine. They offered a place among the stars. Humanity accepted. What choice did they have? But rescue came with rules. Humans were marked as Omega class, the lowest rank in Federation society. They were useful for their strong bodies and quick minds. They could work in dangerous places. They could survive where others died. But they could never be trusted with power. They could never lead. They could never fight in the military. The scanner warning was part of these rules. Earthborn, do not approach. It was written into every security system in the Federation. It was taught to every child of every species. But nobody remembered why. The other species thought it was because humans were dirty, dangerous, diseased. They thought Omega class meant humans were less than them, weaker than them, worth less than them. They had forgotten the truth. 3 months into her time at the academy was studying in the training hall. It was late at night. Most cadets were sleeping, but did not need much sleep. She never had. She heard footsteps behind her, many footsteps, heavy footsteps. She did not turn around. "Look at this," a familiar voice said. The who had mocked her at the gate. "The Earthborn is still awake, like a rat in the walls." Closed her book. She turned slowly. Was not alone. 5 other cadets stood behind him. 2 more, 3. They had formed a half circle around her, blocking the exits. "Can I help you?" asked. Her voice was calm. Smiled. It was not a nice smile. "Yes, you can help me teach a lesson. You see, some of the other cadets are getting confused. They see your scores. They see you in the advanced tactics class. They start to think maybe Earthborn are not so bad." He stepped closer. His silver skin glowed in the dim light. "We need to remind them what you really are." Stood up slowly. She put her book on the bench behind her. She looked at each of the cadets surrounding her. She measured their size, their stance, their confidence. "I do not want trouble," she said quietly. "Too late for that." Moved first. He was fast for her. His fist came toward her face like a silver blur. Was not there. She had learned to fight in the ruins of Seoul. She had learned from gang members and soldiers and desperate refugees. She had learned that in a real fight there were no rules. There was only survival. She dropped low and stepped to the side. His fist hit nothing but air. Before he could recover, his elbow slammed into his ribs. She felt something crack. The other cadets rushed in. A swung at her head. She ducked under his massive arm and drove her knee into his stomach. He doubled over with a grunt. Another grabbed her from behind, threw her head back. Her skull connected with his face. Blood sprayed from his broken nose. He let go. Everything happened very fast. Did not fight like the other species. She did not rely on strength she did not rely on speed she fought like something that had been hunted its entire life. Every movement was efficient, every strike was brutal. She aimed for weak points, eyes, throat, knees, groin, places where even the strongest body could be hurt. In 90 seconds, it was over. All 6 cadets were on the ground. Some were groaning, some were not moving at all. The training hall smelled like blood and sweat. Stood in the middle of them, she was breathing hard, her knuckles were scraped, but she was standing. Lay at her feet. His arm was bent at a wrong angle. His silver face was twisted with pain, but more than pain, saw something else in his eyes. Fear. She crouched down next to him. "Do you know why your ancestors made that scanner warning?" she asked softly. He did not answer, he could not answer, his jaw was swelling shut. "It was not because we were weak," continued. "It was not because we were dirty or sick or less than you. It was because they knew what we really were." She leaned closer. "Your species evolved on paradise worlds. Perfect air, perfect water, perfect food. Everything you needed was given to you. You never had to fight for survival. You never had to adapt or die." She stood up and looked down at him. "My species evolved on a world that hated us. Everything on Earth tried to kill us. The weather, the animals, the diseases, even the planet itself. We should have died 1,000 times over. Every other species would have died, but we did not." She picked up her book from the bench. "We are not dangerous because we are strong. We are dangerous because we do not stop, ever. When we are hurt, we keep fighting. When we are tired, we keep moving. When we are dying, we keep breathing. That is what it means to be Earthborn." She walked toward the door. Then she stopped and looked back at the fallen cadets. "Your ancestors understood this. They made the warning because they were smart. You forgot. That was a mistake." She opened the door. "Do not approach me again." She left. The next morning, none of the 6 cadets reported what happened. Their injuries were explained as training accidents, falls, equipment failures. Nobody asked questions. But word spread anyway. It always did. The other cadets began to look at differently, not with disgust anymore, not with mockery, with something else. Respect, maybe. Or fear. Commander called her to his office again. He had heard the rumors. He did not ask what happened. He did not punish her. He just looked at her with those old eyes. "The Federation has forgotten what humans are," he said. "That is going to be a problem someday." "Stood at attention, sir." "Nothing," he waved his hand. Dismissed Cadet Han. Left his office. She did not understand what he meant, not yet. But she would. The universe had forgotten the lesson of Earth. They had forgotten what survival really meant. They had forgotten that the most dangerous creature was not the strongest or the fastest. It was the one that refused to die. And humans had been refusing to die for 10,000 years. That lesson was coming back. Soon everyone would remember. The war came without warning. Was in the command simulation center when the alarm started screaming. Red lights flashed across every screen. The floor shook with distant explosions. Cadets began to shout and run in all directions. For a moment, everyone thought it was another drill. The academy ran drills every week. This had to be a drill. Then the windows exploded. Real fire, real smoke, real death. The Dominion had attacked. Had read about the in her classes. They were an empire from beyond Federation space. They had been watching the Federation for centuries, waiting, planning, looking for weakness. They had found it. The Federation believed in rules, in protocols, in proper chains of command. They believed that war was something that happened slowly, with warnings, with negotiations, with time to prepare. They did not believe in any of these things. They struck 12 star systems at the same time, military bases, trade stations, colony worlds. Station was one of the first targets. The Academy had the best young officers in the Federation. Destroying them would cripple the military for a generation. Pulled herself up from the floor. Glass had cut her face. Blood ran down her cheek. Around her, cadets were crying, screaming. Some were not moving at all. She looked at the tactical displays. The screens showed enemy ships everywhere, hundreds of them. They were already inside the station's defenses. Breach teams were landing on the outer decks. The Academy's command center was chaos. Instructors were shouting contradicting orders. Some said to evacuate, some said to fight, some said to hide. Nobody agreed on anything. Nobody was in charge. Watched them for exactly 5 seconds. Then she started giving orders. She pointed at a group of cadets near the door. Get to the southern docks. Start evacuating non-combat personnel, families, medical staff, anyone who cannot fight. They stared at her. She was just a cadet, just an Earthborn. Now she shouted. They ran. She pointed at another group. Seal bulkheads 7 through 12. The breach teams will come through the maintenance tunnels. Sealing those sections will slow them down, buy us time. More cadets ran. Commander pushed through the crowd. His uniform was torn. His silver face was covered with dust. He grabbed her arm. What are you doing? Taking command, sir. You cannot do that. There are protocols, chain of command. You are just a cadet. Looked at him. She looked at the chaos around them. She looked at the tactical displays showing enemy soldiers pouring into the station. Protocol is dead, sir. We survive or we do not. Those are the only options now. Stared at her. The moment stretched. The alarms kept screaming. More explosions shook the floor. Then he nodded. You have command, Cadet Han. What do you need? Every cadet who has finished basic weapons training. Get them armed. Get them to me. Ran. The next 18 hours were the worst in Academy history. Did not sleep. She did not eat. She barely stopped moving. She was everywhere at once. In the command center, coordinating defenses. In the corridors, directing squads to breach points. In the maintenance tunnels, fighting hand-to-hand with soldiers. They were strong. They were trained from birth for war. Their armor was thick. Their weapons were advanced. They expected easy victory. They had never fought Earthborn before. Killed her first soldier in Corridor 7. He was twice her size. His armor should have stopped her weapon, but she did not aim for his armor. She aimed for the gaps, the joints, the weak points. He fell. She kept moving. She killed her second in the medical bay. He was trying to shoot wounded cadets. She came up behind him with a metal pipe. She did not give him a chance to turn around. She killed her third and fourth in the engineering section. They were planting explosives. She shot one and stabbed the other with his own knife. She stopped counting after that. The cadets who fought with her watched in amazement. They had seen Earthborn before. Workers, servants, quiet people who kept their heads down. They had never seen anything like. She was tireless. When others needed rest, she kept going. She was fearless. When others hesitated, she charged forward. She was relentless. When a plan failed, she made a new plan. When that plan failed, she made another. She never stopped. She never gave up. At the 12-hour mark, a cadet named Grok asked her a question. How are you still standing? You have not stopped moving since the attack began. Was reloading her weapon. Her hands were covered in blood. Some of it was hers. Most of it was not. I have done this before, she said. Fought in a war. Survived. Grok did not understand. He had grown up on a peaceful world. His worst day had been failing an exam. He had never been hungry. He had never been cold. He had never watched people die and kept walking because stopping meant dying too. Had done all of these things before she was 10 years old. This was not new to her. This was not strange. This was just another day of being Earthborn. At the 16-hour mark, the push toward the command center. They had breached the last defensive line, 200 soldiers against 50 exhausted cadets. Gathered the survivors in the main corridor. She looked at their faces. Species who had spent 300 years looking down on humans, species who thought Earthborn were weak. None of them were laughing now. "They are coming," said. Her voice was calm, steady, like she was discussing the weather. "We cannot beat them. We can only slow them down, buy time for the evacuation ships to escape." A young cadet raised his hand. His silver skin was gray with exhaustion. "Are you saying we are going to die?" Looked at him. "Maybe, probably, does it matter?" The cadet blinked. "Of course it matters." "No, it does not. What matters is what we do before we die. Do we hide? Do we run? Or do we stand and fight and make them pay for every step they take?" She checked her weapon one last time. "I am going to fight. You can come with me or you can hide. The choice is yours." She turned and walked toward the enemy. Every single cadet followed her. The battle for the command center lasted 2 hours. It was brutal. It was bloody. It was the kind of fight that should not have been possible. 50 cadets against 200 trained soldiers. But the cadets had something they did not expect. They had an Earthborn leading them. When the Federation reinforcements finally arrived, they found Station still standing. Barely. The walls were black with burns. The floors were slippery with blood. Bodies lay everywhere. And in the command center, surrounded by exhausted cadets who looked at her like she was something more than human, stood Han. She had not slept in 43 hours. She was still standing. The commander was captured alive. When they asked him what went wrong, he had only one answer. "The warning was right. We should not have approached." The ceremony took place on the steps of the Federation High Council. The building was the largest in the capital city. White stone stretched toward the sky. Flags from 1,000 worlds hung from every window. Millions of beings watched from the streets below and from screens across the galaxy. Han stood alone on the top step. She wore a dress uniform that was still new and stiff. Medals hung from her chest. Bandages still covered wounds that had not finished healing. Behind her stood the surviving cadets from Station, 47 of them. The ones who had followed her into battle, the ones who had trusted an Earthborn with their lives. In front of her stood Chancellor. He was the highest-ranking official in the entire Federation. He was old, ancient even for a. His silver skin had turned almost white with age. His eyes had seen empires rise and fall. Those eyes were fixed on. "For extraordinary courage in defense of Station," the Chancellor read from a golden scroll. His voice carried across the crowd. "For tactical brilliance that saved 3,000 lives. For leadership that united species who had never fought together before." He paused. The crowd was completely silent. "For demonstrating that true strength has nothing to do with classification." He set down the scroll and picked up a small box. Inside was a medal, the Star of Valor, First Class. It was the highest military honor in the Federation. It had been given less than 100 times in 3 centuries. No Earthborn had ever received it. Until now. Pinned the medal to his chest. The medal was heavy, real gold, real diamonds, worth more than everything had ever owned in her life. "On behalf of the Federation," the Chancellor said, "we thank you, Han, we honor you, and we remember." The crowd erupted, cheering, clapping, shouting her name. The sound was like thunder rolling across the capital. Stood still, her face showed nothing. She had learned long ago not to show emotion, not to let people see inside her. But her eyes moved across the crowd. She saw faces from every species. 100 others, some were crying, some were cheering, some were just staring with their mouths open. And there near the front she saw. His arm was still in a healing cast from their fight. His silver face was unreadable, but when their eyes met, he did something unexpected. He stood at attention, and he saluted. Respect, real respect, the kind that was earned, not demanded. Gave him the smallest nod, then she looked away. After the ceremony, the crowd slowly broke apart. Important people wanted to shake her hand. Reporters wanted to ask her questions. Politicians wanted to be seen with her. Ignored them all. She found a quiet corner and stood there looking up at the sky. The capital city was beautiful, clean streets, beautiful buildings, perfect weather, nothing like Earth. Commander found her there. His uniform was also new. He had also received medals, but he had not stood on the top step. That place was reserved for her alone. The council is meeting right now, he said quietly, standing beside her. They are debating a proposal. What kind of proposal? They want to remove the Omega classification. Earthborn would become standard citizens, same rights as everyone else. Considered this. She had dreamed of this moment since she was a child. Equal rights, equal treatment, no more scanner warnings, no more being looked down on. And the scanner warning, she asked. Gone, all of it, erased from every system in the Federation. The crowd noise drifted over them. Happy sounds, celebration sounds, a galaxy that had suddenly realized Earthborn were more than they thought. No, said. Blinked no. Keep the warning. I do not understand. Turned to face him. The star of valor gleamed on her chest. Her eyes were calm and steady. For 300 years, that warning has meant something bad. It has meant stay away. It has meant we are less than you. It has meant we do not belong. She paused. Change the meaning. Keep the words, but change what they mean. Earthborn do not approach, not because we are beneath you, but because we survived something you cannot imagine, because we will do whatever it takes to protect what matters, because when everything else fails, we are still standing. She looked back up at the sky. Let them remember why the warning was created. Let them remember what we really are. Let the warning stand as a promise that when the darkness comes, Earthborn will be there, and we will not stop until the darkness is gone. Was quiet for a long moment. You want the warning to be a badge of honor, he said finally, not a mark of shame. Yes. That is unexpected. Almost smiled. We are Earthborn, everything about us is unexpected. 6 months later, the Federation Military Academy updated its entrance systems. The scanners still flashed red for Earthborn candidates. The alarm still rang. The warning still appeared. But the words had changed. Earthborn approach with respect. In the tactical classrooms, instructors taught a new lesson. In the combat simulators, cadets studied new strategies. In officer training programs across 100 worlds, a simple truth was passed down. When the galaxy burns, find an Earthborn. They were forged in fire. They know the way through. Graduated at the top of her class. She was offered positions on the best ships, at the highest commands in the most important places. She turned them all down. Instead, she asked for a small ship and a simple mission. Go to the edges of Federation space. Find the places where darkness gathered. Push it back. The council granted her request. On the day she left, thousands of beings came to the spaceport to see her off. Cadets she had trained, soldiers she had led, people she had saved. And at the very front, a young Earthborn girl, maybe 7 years old. The same age had been when she walked through fire to escape Earth. The girl looked up with wide eyes, eyes that had known hunger and fear and pain, eyes that had been told their whole life that they were less than everyone else. Is it true, the girl asked, what they say about you? Knelt down to meet her eyes. What do they say? They say you never give up. They say you never stop fighting. They say you are what all Earthborn could be. Looked at this small girl, this child who had already survived more than most species would face in a lifetime, this future that Earth had created. They are wrong, said softly. I am not what Earthborn could be. I am what Earthborn are, all of us. Every single one, we just forgot for a while. She stood up and looked out at the crowd. All the faces, all the species, all the beings who had once looked down on humans and now looked at them with something new. But we remember now. She turned and walked toward her ship. Behind her, the crowd cheered. The little girl waved. The sun shone down on a galaxy that would never forget the lesson of Earth. Some things cannot be killed. Some people cannot be broken. Some spirits cannot be crushed. The universe had tried to destroy humanity for 10,000 years. It had failed. And now, finally, everyone knew why. Earthborn do not approach. Not because they were weak. Because they were not. Because they never had been. Because they never would be. The stars waited, the darkness gathered, the future called. And Han, daughter of Earth, walked forward to meet it. Alone. Unafraid. Unstoppable.